What's up, everybody? Thanks for tuning in to Fan Culture. We missed y'all. We're back. It's been about a few weeks now, and we got a special treat for y'all. We got all four of us on the podcast this time around. Carl, Brandon, Sakani, tuning in from New York.
Watching this Portland and Golden State game so I'll be giving live updates as well.
For sure. Well, we appreciate that. We'll talk about the conference finals. Just two great matchups coming up. We'll talk, just reactions from the playoffs so far. First things first, we got to get into this NBA draft lottery, though. We've been waiting for this, basically the Zion sweepstakes, figuring out, where Zion's potentially going to land. So the results are in from the draft lottery. From 14 up, we got the Celtics at 14, Miami Heat at 13, Charlotte Hornets at 12, Minnesota Timberwolves at 11, the Hawks at 10, Wizards at 9, Hawks at 8 again, the Bulls at 7, the Suns at 6, the Cavs at 5. But the top four, really the main topics of discussion, you got the Lakers at 4, the Knicks at 3, the Grizzlies at 2, and the winners of the Zion sweepstakes, the New Orleans Pelicans at number 1. So did y'all get to watch the lottery live or tune into it?
I caught it while I was driving.
I watched it.
There was a live CBS link that they were streaming online, so I did catch the very ending.
Yeah, so kind of you said you watched it.
Yeah.
I mean,
I didn't watch it. I used to watch it, but now I kind of just.
It's not the draft. You can look at the results later.
Yeah.
But now that your team's in the lottery, you don't watch it.
Nah.
All right. Well, so kind of you said you watched it live. Like, how wild was it to, see teams jumping up into the top 4?
It was actually, I think it's a nice format. It's gonna completely change, I think, the way teams look at the draft now. This lottery process, having Lakers had 1% chance to get the number 1 pick, and the fact that they were able to jump up because Minnesota got the 11th pick?
Yeah, Minnesota got the 11th pick.
Yeah, once that happened, that's when Lakers jumped into the top 4. And so it was just like, hold up, wait, what? I didn't realize that could happen because I didn't necessarily look at what can happen based on who gets what pick.
Right.
And so being like a casual fan watching the lottery just because it's on ESPN and I was planning on watching this Portland and Golden State game afterwards, it was nice to see that process, and it draws a bit more, attention to the lottery process for the casual fan who might not, think that their team can have would have the odds to get a number 1 pick. Watching this and like, oh snap, we don't really have a chance, or Lakers didn't really have a chance. Grizzlies didn't really have a chance. Pelicans, I don't think anybody really saw either of those 3 teams being in the top 5, let alone the top 4. But I think it's exciting for the casual fan, like I said, to be able to hear about, all right, we might not have a chance to, or we might not have the best odds to get top pick, but we can still get a good pick. And that's what 3 of the top 4 teams were able to do, despite the fact that they hadn't had the worst records in the league. So I think that's going to change the way, the way we look at the lottery and draft orders from here on out.
It does add a little bit more suspense and uncertainty to the draft, just because, like you was saying, you don't really know who's gonna be in the top percentage of that draft lottery, and it's always depending upon on the smallest of percentages or large percentages.
Yeah, I think the current format for the lottery, it doesn't necessarily deter tanking because teams are going to go with their chances. Right. So, if you have a 25% chance top pick, you'll take that, and tank to try to get in that, bracket. But
that's the thing. Now they only have 14% chance.
Oh, yeah, that's right. It used to be higher odds.
Exactly.
I like that, now, okay, you may tank and, yeah, you may have a chance to get in the top 4 pick, but a team that is barely on the brink of making the playoffs has a legitimate chance to actually sneak into the top 4 as well. So I do like having that, just so you can't have, serial tankers like the Knicks, I won't say like the Bulls, because the Bulls are trying to rebuild, but they just can't right now. But
basically,
the Suns,
you can't recreate a process like Philly did.
Yeah.
It's going to be far more difficult to do that.
Oh, yeah. It's going to be super luck or super rigging by the NBA in order to do that.
Does New Orleans winning the Zion sweepstakes after so much drama with Anthony Davis throughout the year, so much discussion about small market teams keeping their big name stars. Does that completely eliminate rigged draft speculation? Or can you look at this and say, after all of that Anthony Davis drama, now you give him the number 1 overall pick, which could possibly lead to him staying. Maybe he wants to play with him. Can you still use that argument?
You know, I honestly didn't think about it that way, but I understand where you're coming from. To me, the draft would have been rigged if it went to the Knicks, especially the Lakers, because the Lakers have such little odds. So if it went to the Lakers at 2% chance of getting the number 1 pick, or if it went to Cleveland, because that would have been the second time Cleveland loses LeBron, and then they get Kyrie, a consensus number 1, Zion, consensus number 1.
The number 1 overall pick 3 out of 4 years.
Ridiculous.
Yeah.
So I would have felt that way about those 3 teams, in particular the Lakers and the Cavs. But I mean, the Grizzlies got the number 2 pick. No one's looking at the Grizzlies like that, and they're in a place to get Ja Morant, RJ Barrett.
Did they try to tank this year, or what was their season like? Because I don't remember.
I think they're rebuilding. They're
They were
clearly
in the 30s.
rebuilding.
I don't know if you can
win
really
range.
call it tanking, because you had Mike Conley and Marc Gasol, who have been 2 of the most important players for that team for majority of the season. Even if you say, oh, well, Marc Gasol was traded at the trade deadline. How many games
That's like
into the
60%
season?
through
You know what
the
I'm saying?
season.
Like, how many games
That's
into
like
the season
60,
before you
that's
move him? So, I mean, you kept your 2 best players for majority of the year, so it's not like you didn't try to win, but,
Yeah. I mean,
things happen.
Yeah, and it's hard to win in the West anyway. They're in rebuilding mode.
Right.
They obviously been trying to unload both Conley and Gasol's contracts. So I wouldn't say necessarily tanking, not the level of Phoenix. Phoenix has been blatantly tanking. I don't know what anyone says, and just letting Devin Booker rot, which is wild. But
And score 70, so he looks better than he possibly may be.
right, yeah, you can get 70, but it's got to be in a loss.
Well, let me introduce this question. Do you think with Denver making a late or a deep playoff push, and teams like the Hawks with their young talent, do you think that gives teams like Memphis hope, or how do you think other teams look at Denver, Atlanta, other up and coming teams with young talent?
Well, I mean, I feel like they all have the same exact idea. They all want to acquire young talent. I don't think nobody wants to be bad. It's just when you look at it and say, okay, this isn't enough. But if we play bad enough, we can add something to it. Denver didn't have to do that. They were good last year. Good enough. I mean, they were good enough last year, but then they were bad enough to where they could add somebody like Michael Porter Jr. that they can, look forward to the following season. With Atlanta, they were bad, and they got Trae Young, and it's kind of like, all right, we have it, but we still need a little more. So
A lot of people
exactly.
are banking on Michael Porter Jr. to be that missing link.
Oh yeah,
to
they're
get
gonna
them
be
over the
nasty.
edge.
I honestly think I've said it before on here, but I think that's gonna be a team to watch next year. They were a
I
team to
think so
watch this
too.
year, but I
If
think next
healthy.
year is even a little more.
But I agree also with Sakani, where I don't think they're the same team. I think they have similar kind of like beginnings or rebuilding processes, because Jamal Murray, what is this, his 3rd year?
Yes,
4th year?
this was his 3rd year.
So, I mean, was Trae Young and what's his name? Collins?
John Collins.
Oh,
John Collins. What Atlanta gonna look like in the next 2.5 to 3 years?
And I respect that a little
Kent
more than
Bazemore.
Yeah.
he needs a lead. I
Chance the Rapper.
I respect that type of building as opposed to, well, who's the biggest star? I mean, granted, it's Denver, it's Atlanta. You're not really going to attract the Paul
Biggest
Georges,
stars.
LeBron Jameses, or whatever. But the fact that they're not even attempting, the fact that we recognize who we are, so we're going to do it this way. I mean, Denver did bring in Paul Millsap, but you look at majority of their key players,
Right.
they were drafted.
They
A
were.
lot younger. Yeah.
Yo, what's his name? Gary Harris is turning out to be a baller. Have y'all see that
Oh, yeah.
last series?
No,
I
Gary,
didn't know he
Gary,
could hoop like that.
Gary Harris is nice, but he just gets overlooked by, the ball dominance of Jamal Murray,
Exactly.
Jokic's
Jokic.
playmaking and scoring, and then you can't necessarily phase a dude like Paul Millsap out either.
Right.
So I mean,
Exactly.
but
Will
Gary
Barton's
Harris,
importance.
yeah, but if Gary Harris had the touches,
Right.
He could be a 20-point scorer.
I think so.
I mean, I
He
think
could,
efficient.
honestly,
as well.
he could eventually be like a CJ McCollum type dude.
Yeah, I don't see that.
Nah.
Nah,
Maybe not style of play, but production.
I don't see that
production.
either.
At the very
I give him that
least-
tier right below that.
at
I
the
don't
ve-
think that's bad.
okay,
You
Like,
think
on
like
tier right below.
borderline 20 a
At the
game?
very least, probably
Yes.
like a Steph Losha or like a Iggy, like somebody that's gonna give you a solid number.
I see him being kind of like where Buddy Hield is right
Buddy
now
Hield.
at his best.
Okay.
But all right, so just kind of back to the lottery.
Right.
Yeah.
With New Orleans having the number 1 overall pick, should they draft Zion? Should they keep AD
I was
and
just
try to
gonna say
pair
that.
those? Should AD has already requested a trade. What do you think would be the best move for New Orleans to make at this time?
So who's their starting 5?
I wouldn't even consider a starting 5 for this reason, because I think that what they should do is draft Zion, trade AD to get pieces to build around Zion. Go ahead and build around him now. I mean, because AD, first off, I don't really see that tandem working. What kind of team do you put around, that kind of build
But
up?
we don't even know
shooters.
how he's gonna play at the next level. Like we've only
That's
seen
why
him
I'm
play.
not a big fan of building around him. What's his game?
Like
I would
everybody he's
prefer-
played with so far is kind of like
Right. And if you say
Small.
trade him to the Knicks, trade him to Memphis,
Trade.
Anthony Davis.
Davis to
only-
Yeah.
Memphis.
And then you just try to, like I was telling Brandon, if you're the Knicks and you want Anthony Davis, I'll take your number 3 overall pick plus more. I'll draft Zion Williamson, possibly draft RJ Barrett number 3. Let them continue what they were doing at Duke. That way I don't just have Zion. I have Zion and another key young piece, and the two of you will be my focal point and not just Zion and then a bunch of other people around him who I feel like can complement a game that I don't know what is going to be at this time.
Yeah, you don't know what Zion's style is going to be in the league, but at the same time, you can start to project or start to kind of say, oh, this is what we want you to do. This is kind of the area that we want you to be in. Because Zion's going to be a tweener. I mean, honestly, I'd put him at the 4. I wouldn't put him at the 3 and let him do what he does. I'm talking, and then get a couple shooters, get a setup point guard, that not necessarily an Elfrid Payton, but a setup man similar to the caliber of Elfrid Payton, someone that can shoot as well.
So if you had the opportunity to trade Anthony Davis to Memphis for the number 2 overall pick plus more and take Ja and Zion.
Davis don't want to go to Memphis. So
I don't care where you
don't
want.
know
I
how-
own you technically. I can trade you to whoever I want to.
So
was the case, they could have done that already.
Yeah, but that's why the GM got fired, because he didn't.
the reason I say to trade AD and build around Zion is because now you get to pick and choose what teams you want to trade to, what pieces you want to pick off of that team. Whether you want to take draft picks, whether you want to take individual players. So let's say if for some reason we thought the Lakers had the best package. I want to set up man like Lonzo. I'm looking for shooters or all around players like Josh Hart, like Kyle Kuzma. Now I get to actually pick those pieces as opposed to feeling like I have to take them because those are the only valuable assets that you have. So I could say I don't want Brandon Ingram.
I mean, at the end of the day, you could have did that, and the fact that they got the number 1 overall pick, you would be in the same exact position. You would have had, about 30, 35 games with those players to get a good feel for them, and then you could have had Brandon Ingram and possibly even flipped him for something, and then still got the number 1 overall pick for Zion. So that's something that could have already happened. Now you're looking at more. You have way more options now that you have the main asset that people were going to use for Anthony Davis. Knicks, we get number 1 overall pick. We're signing Kyrie, we're signing KD, and then we're trading that for Anthony Davis. Yeah. Phoenix, if we get or whoever else, whatever other team, we get the number 1 overall pick, we're trading it for Anthony Davis. Well, I have that now. So now I own the chessboard.
Yeah. So in the grand scheme of things, do you think, because I know you mentioned it earlier, but do you think that they should trade Anthony Davis, keep him, or trade for another high lottery pick, to get a guy like RJ Barrett or Ja Morant, whoever you want to build with Zion?
My ideal situation would be keep Anthony Davis, because I think Anthony Davis is going to be a better NBA basketball player than Zion Williamson. But you've already expressed that you don't want to be here. And I'm not one of those people that feel like you should just hold on to players. If I haven't done right by you, or if you feel like this relationship isn't working, I'll let you go. I'll take what I can get, and I'll try to build with something else. But I just don't believe that building around Zion is the best decision for any franchise to make.
I'm trying to think of who is gonna want him most out of like all the other teams. Like who's
Lakers.
AD.
Yeah, no, who's gonna want Zion the most? Who's
Knicks.
You think the Knicks?
Knicks are gonna want him more because
Who's
they
the Knicks
need
gonna
that.
put up for him?
Anything and everything. They'll give up that number 4 pick. They'll
I'll
give
take
up-
Dennis Smith Jr.
So you think they're gonna be done with Knox?
Knox is
If
still
you
a
get
project.
KD,
I like Knox.
you don't need Knox because he's just gonna be a role player anyways.
I feel like Knox.
I'll take Knox. I'll
I
take
don't-
3. I'll take something else.
This might be a reach, but like I feel like Knox is gonna be like Jason Tatum, but like more above the rim.
I could see that. I could see him building into that because I mean he can shoot. His
Nice
ball
size.
handling needs a little bit of improvement. Yeah, he's got nice size. He's about
Yeah.
6'9" right now.
Yeah,
Probably gonna grow another inch before it's all said and done.
probably be like PG maybe.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know
See
if he's
him-
gonna shoot that nice.
Yeah.
like I said, but he shot a pretty decent at Kentucky.
right. But I mean, if I'm, especially with the Pelicans now having David Griffin, so if they were in a situation to trade that number 1 pick, knowing how desperate a team like New York is,
You can
you
fleece.
could fleece him. You really could fleece him. I could say I want Knox. I want that 4th pick. I want your next pick next year unprotected. You know, I want Dennis Smith Jr.
Damn.
and take a bad contract from the Pelicans
Yeah.
over to New York.
Oh yeah. Take
You think,
if
you
not,
think
I'll take
Solomon
they're
Zion.
dumb? You think they're dumb enough to do that?
absolutely.
Oh yeah, they're desperate
why-
franchise.
Why do I feel like that? Because it's already been
But are
stated.
both franchises not desperate?
No.
I don't know if the Pelicans
Why?
are necessarily
But
desperate.
why aren't they?
They pretend
Why
like
aren't
they're
they
not.
just
I
as
think they
desperate?
are.
Exactly, they're just as
They
desperate
are.
as the Knicks are.
I don't think the Knicks are
'Cause
just
they're
desperate
desperate.
because the Knicks
No,
have a
but-
chance to get Kyrie.
They're
and
desperate because
KD.
they're not
So
winning.
you put Anthony Davis in
Exactly.
the middle of that. You're desperate to fill out that 3 and bring New York to a place that you haven't been in 50, 60 years. With the Pelicans, they don't have a history or a reputation to live up to. We had a top 5, arguably top 3 in terms of just overall talent basketball player in the NBA. And for the 7 years that he's been here, we only made the playoffs twice.
My question is this: how do they know Zion is that player though?
That's why I wouldn't build around him.
Like, I don't. People are banking a lot on Zion because he could dunk. Like, I don't know. Like he
I mean, he's
is.
athletic as
He's
hell.
very
I mean,
athletic, but like, where does that like?
but I mean,
I don't know.
You
but
have
the
to.
same thing.
I don't see
you
the
could say
vision.
the same thing for. You could say the same thing for like LeBron when he was coming out. Like
Right.
you
LeBron
had no
a vision
idea.
and
But
a
you saw
handle.
LeBron like make. I should nah.
He had a vision and a handle
Yeah.
that you don't see with Zion.
But
But
I-
Zion,
okay, but
you
that's-
see
those are-
freakish athletic with weight.
Maybe I don't see the vision.
LeBron obviously got to play a little more freely. We saw him in high school. What high school, sophisticated systems do you really see where, your talents aren't really on display like that?
And who was
played
Zion
at Duke.
playing in high school?
Yeah, but I mean, Zion played at Duke, and honestly, he didn't really have the ball in his hands. So we don't really know what all he's capable of. We got to see RJ Barrett. So if I'm a draft
Dude.
expert, I'm a scout. I've seen all
People-
of RJ for the most part right
People
now.
overlooking RJ Barrett. Is
I don't
Cam
think
Reddish
RJ
in the
showed
draft
anything
too?
bad.
Well, not to say that he's shown anything bad, but I mean, I pretty much know. I know
What you're getting.
for a fact what he is right now
Do you
because I've seen it night after night after night. Zion, there still may be more to unpack. Like you said, there is the unknown, but everything in the draft is the unknown.
With how hyped he was, with how talented he's supposed to be, don't you think we would have seen everything that he was capable of doing playing with a Coach K? Do you think Coach K would have held him back if he actually could have given more?
Yes.
Dean Smith did the same thing with Michael Jordan.
Yes.
Well, I'm just saying. No, well, I'm asking because you just said we saw everything from RJ
Coming
Barrett.
from a
If-
person who used to play basketball, absolutely.
So why
yeah.
would he expose all of RJ Barrett's talent and not Zion's? Especially when RJ Barrett, when you signed them, RJ Barrett was projected as a better player.
I don't
Right.
think. I don't think he. It's not a thing of holding RJ Barrett back. He was making more. I feel like sound basketball moves, like, and you don't want. Okay, you know what it probably was. Zion probably didn't prove that he was that good of a ball handler. Because
Maybe he's not.
Okay, but I mean, you can develop a handle. You don't need
Sometimes.
sometimes. But I mean, probably that's why we didn't see him handle the ball. He didn't get clearance to handle the ball like that because he wasn't.
And also,
he couldn't do it.
Also, it might have been better to have somebody else bring the ball up. I mean, that's not his strength. That doesn't mean he can't do it or can't develop at it.
Or
And
maybe it was
so,
better
it's
for the
because we didn't-
system for him to be
Exactly.
off the
It
ball.
was better for him to not be bringing the ball up court or, be handling the ball because it might have, disrupted the offensive flow. So I'm
Pace.
sure
I
whatever
think
team
y'all
gets
proving my
him.
point.
What's up?
I think
But
y'all
what- the
proving
thing
my
is-
point.
Okay.
If somebody
The
can do
thing is,
something,
whatever-
you let them do it.
Exactly. I feel like whatever system he's in, they're going to utilize his strengths and help him develop into this, like, the star that everybody's projecting that he very well should be, based on the talent that we have seen thus far, which isn't a lot. But if we're basing this off of the little that we have seen, chances are your ceiling can and should improve.
I wouldn't be completely shocked. Honestly, I would feel bad for him, but I wouldn't be completely shocked if Zion Williamson turned out to be like the Tim Tebow of basketball.
I mean, you hate for like stories to come out like that. but
Yeah, I would hate
mean,
because I wish Tebow could have got more of a chance. Because I
Right.
mean, he's showing you that he can win. He's
Right.
just not a.
I think
typical
when
quarterback.
people kind of like they try to get on the wave when they see the wave coming.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, I couldn't turn like the commercial went from Zion Williamson to like something else back to Zion Williamson, and it's like people act like there's nobody else in the draft except Zion Williamson.
And
There
if he
isn't,
doesn't turn out to
only
be the
one
best
pick draft.
person,
If he doesn't live up to the hype, which he probably won't, of somebody has always had
very
a certain
hard.
But
expectation.
someone thinks he's going to be the next LeBron.
Yeah.
I don't even see that in
It's
him.
very, very hard to live up to other people's expectations. To some degree, LeBron hasn't even lived up to expectations.
And honestly, we just need. I think we as NBA fans should all just hope that
He
he ends up
hasn't?
in the best situation.
To a degree, no.
None of those are self-imposed. They all come from
'cause
other
I mean,
people.
I mean other people's
Okay,
expectations.
because like
Yeah, because I mean, when LeBron is getting drafted, he doesn't stand in front of a podium and say, "Well, I project myself to be blah blah blah." It's you look at him and scouts and analysts and Stephen A. and Skip and blah blah, and they say who you're supposed to be
He said he
based
was the
on
chosen
their
one.
interpretation.
people
it
that have
tatted on.
never met LeBron James hate him for the very fact that his last name isn't Jordan.
What?
They wish he was the only reason they hate him is because he's not Michael Jordan. They compare him to Jordan constantly.
But they don't hate him because he's not
Because
Jordan.
he's not.
I think if anything, people dislike the
I
fact
think
that he's
because
compared to
he's-
Jordan by other
Exactly.
people. He's
Exactly.
made to be a
That's
little
why they
better than
dislike
what he
him.
really is.
When you're within,
But everybody is pretty much.
Yeah, when you're within range of someone who's deemed untouchable, they hate that because it's like, well, nah, Jordan did X, Y, and Z. LeBron, he ain't even do that. Like, so they love to push him down to keep that separation.
My
I mean,
cousin
I think
hated LeBron just
Kobe-
because people said he was better than Kobe. and
Kobe
he
was a little
diehard
more
Laker fan.
embraced.
Nah, but this is the thing though. You know those memes? They'd be like, nobody at all, or like,
Yeah.
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 and then he's
LeBron's
not
LeBron
Mike.
is-
Yeah, it's like, bro, nobody even
But
said
people
that.
do say that.
I honestly feel like we're at the point where
It'd be real triggered.
why can't we get to the point where we're like, well, Zion ain't Bron, you know what I mean? Just let LeBron be his own category now. Just like
Yeah.
Kobe is basically his own category. Jordan's his own category. Shaq
Basically.
is his own category.
Yeah, but you just
Like-
named 3 retired players.
Well, yeah, but I'm
I think
saying
that
like
might
he's.
be when he done. I think it might.
Can we
happen.
be real though? LeBron's semi-retired.
No. Because you got 3 years left and people still talking about what you're gonna do with these last
But
3.
can you
I'm not-
imagine?
And then I've also heard that these 3 years are not supposed to be his last.
Yeah, he still want to play with his son.
Yeah, I know. I could see him signing like another 1 or 2 year deal
Yeah, 2 at the
following
most.
this.
At the most.
But
But what if he ends up like, what if we don't see like this just major decline the same way Tom Brady has done? Like we still haven't seen that drop off. What if that's the case?
there's a
at the
cliff.
end of
There's a
his-
cliff for everyone.
Of
I don't
course
know.
there
I don't know
is.
when
I
that.
just
I don't know
mean-
when that cliff is. That cliff is. It might
Exactly.
be later than others. Yeah.
I think if he sees that in the offseason, he'll retire. I don't think LeBron will go through a season averaging 19, 5 and
Why
8.
not?
Why not? You
I
don't
don't
think he
see
would average
that.
a triple double?
Bruh.
I think at that point he would average a triple double.
LeBron could
No, I don't
average
see it.
22 points and like still and be like on the decline. I feel like he could.
But I don't think he would want to play that.
I don't see why not.
You think he
I
wants
mean-
to be
I don't
in
see
the
why
he,
not.
he wants to be in the argument of being the greatest at all times.
Yes.
And if that
I think LeBron wants to be at his best every single time. And a LeBron James
When it's all
averaging
said and
20
done-
to 22, that's not his best.
When it's all said and
just kinda
done-
done for you, bro.
He might not have the rings, but his stats are gonna be stupid.
Yeah, I mean, so are Wilts.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, I just so did I mean, so are Wilts. I mean, I don't know, but okay. So are we done with the draft?
Who was the second, third, and the fourth is the Lakers, but who's the second? Who's the
so
third?
the Grizzlies
Memphis.
were second, and
Grizzlies.
Memphis
And
was
the Knicks.
and the Knicks were third.
Okay,
If you're Memphis,
who should
are you
pick?
keeping Mike Conley? Because John Moran is basically consensus number 2. Do you keep Mike Conley and let him kind of develop Ja for a year, or do you just scrap it and all right, we going with you?
You know,
That's a good
I
question.
I don't know how
Or should
high
they
they
go with RJ?
That's what I was just gonna say. I don't know how high they are on
Yeah.
RJ. They might just go with RJ
I think
because Conley's a hard contract to get off of.
Yeah.
if you
Ain't nobody gonna
can
pick
get
up.
rid of it,
If you can do
if you
it
can get rid of it, you do.
for long-term flexibility.
Where's
I
Mike
do
Conley
agree with
gonna
that.
go?
I mean, who needs a point guard? Trade him to Orlando. They made it to
Phoenix.
the playoffs this year. Or trade him to Phoenix. You have cap space. Who
Phoenix
else are you
has cap
paying?
space.
That way, you still get your point guard that you're looking for, and he's
Phoenix
a
not
veteran,
gonna do that.
and he's a
They're-
defensive
that's too
guy that
smart.
you don't have.
I just don't think Phoenix would pick up that contract or him. There's better point guards who they
He's
can
got what
get
2
than-
years left on his deal.
I mean, when you
Yeah,
say there are
like
better,
80 million.
when you say that there are better point guards, who else? Because Kemba Walker isn't going to sign there, and who else is available in a trade? I think Mike Conley might be their best option right now because you fell so far in the draft.
A quick side note: do y'all remember when Phoenix had 3 point guards and now they have none?
Yes, you had Isaiah Thomas, you had Eric Bledsoe, and you had Goran
Bledsoe.
Dragic, and you let
So
go
wild.
of arguably the 2 best.
Didn't they have Brandon Knight too?
Yes,
Yeah,
But he wasn't there at the
He
same time.
came later.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
but yeah, now here they are. They
and
need a
now
point guard,
he's
but y'all
is
have
he
3.
still with?
point guard list.
He went to Houston.
Look at you.
Oh, Brandon Knight just has a sad story.
I mean, he was inefficient. he
he really
had too many
does.
turnovers, and
Yeah.
he couldn't defend. So it was just like you had no place in.
Or
this
he
league.
was hurt.
and he was hurt a lot. He had one decent year in Milwaukee, but even then, still inefficient, still no defense, still high turnovers. But you're scoring well, and the team was winning, so it looked good. But
Yeah.
So if you're Memphis, who you taking, RJ or Ja?
I'm taking Ja. I just think he's better.
I think if you can get off that Conley contract, I'd say Ja.
Ja. Sakani, what do you think?
Probably Ja.
Ja.
Yeah.
All right, so that leaves the Knicks with R.J. Barrett to fill out Kyrie and KD.
But I feel like that's just such
That's
a weird fit, though.
Yeah.
It's
Why?
such a
That
weird
It's
fit.
such a
Or do you-
weird fit.
Okay,
Assuming
why?
Kevin Knox
But
is
they
still
can't-
there
but-
too, or is
Somebody coming off the bench, unless you put KD at the 4, you don't have KP anymore.
Yeah.
Who says KD's going to the Knicks?
Hey, who said he's
Everyone.
not? Pretty much everybody.
Everybody.
What if the Knicks go with Ja and they don't pick up Kyrie? They decide, all right, we don't want to get Kyrie. We feel like we're gonna be able to get John Morant.
Do you think that?
I don't see the Knicks doing that.
But are KD and Kyrie? Are they?
They already have Dennis Smith though.
And
You know, you can move off of him. You got, I think that's easy, fairly easy to do. And Nil Kina,
I'm saying,
he's a
honestly,
bench player.
at this point, I'm taking John Morant and Kyrie Irving over Dennis Smith Jr. I still like Dennis Smith Jr., but I'm taking the other two. I'm taking the potential of Ja and what I've seen from Kyrie. In
But
the league over
I'm just
Dennis.
wondering though because
So
the,
why pick up Dennis then?
I mean, that was a trade.
That was
for
part
KP.
of the trade.
Like, it's just all right.
But with
And they got DeAndre Jordan.
and they got DeAndre Jordan,
that right?
Well, on a 1-year deal. Yeah.
But I
or
would
last year of his.
I
deal.
would bring him back.
I would too. I would.
Was
too.
it the last year of his deal? That was his first year there.
He only signed 1 year.
But yeah, I mean, well, he was with.
Oh, I thought he
yeah.
signed a multi-year.
No, he only signed 1 year with Dallas.
Yeah, but I mean, like the media is portraying that Kyrie and KD are a package deal, and
That's
that's why
already-
they're going to New York. So
Yeah.
if you say, "Hey, I'm gonna get Ja," does that mean that you miss out on both of them?
No.
And now you just build around Ja,
Or you could take Ja and Kyrie and just have them play 1 and 2. But I don't think Kyrie would
Or-
be good with that.
Or you trade up
I don't
to
think
get
they
that
have
number one.
They don't have the assets to keep trading.
Soon they're gonna be trading away Madison Square Garden.
All
I'm
right.
saying,
Well,
could be all
can you
stock.
throw can you throw
What's the
owners
stock
in a
there?
trade? If you
Oh
can,
my
if you can throw
gosh.
owners in a trade,
You can
I
throw,
mean-
but can't you throw coaches?
You can
and
throw
GMs
coaches.
in there?
I know
That's
about
what I
I know a coach.
Yeah.
I don't know about a GM.
I know because Doc got traded.
Yeah, but there's a rule where you can't
He
trade.
did get traded. They gave up. They
That's
gave up.
funny,
Draft,
though.
they gave
Yeah,
up draft
but
picks
you
for
can't trade coaches and players. That's why Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett didn't go with him.
hmm
And who's the next coach?
David Fizdale.
Okay, does
Is there?
New Orleans, you really want him?
I think they
that couldn't hurt him.
they might. It wouldn't hurt them.
I don't think it's
they're good
nobody
with
that
Alvin
you,
Gentry
but it's,
though.
that's
right
what I'm- it's
now.
nobody you would trade for.
Yeah.
If it's
Yeah, that's true.
Popovich,
I
then
feel like
all right.
Fizdale would
Yeah.
be cool anywhere for the most part, as long as he got a decent team.
Take that for data.
But
Classic.
so what if? This is what I was about to say. What if the Knicks give up their number 3 pick and figure out some multi-package deal where they're able to get Davis as well?
Well, that's why I was saying. I think that would be ideal. I think that's what New Orleans may want to do. I send you that. I take your, what is that, 3? I take your 3
Yeah.
overall
Take
plus
your 3,
whatever.
so
And
they
then
have
I
1
would
and 3.
have Zion and another young piece from the same draft class. That way you don't feel like, oh, you're more important than blah, blah, blah. It's like, nah, y'all are my 1-2. My 1A, 1B. Whoever's 1A, whoever's 1B, we'll figure that out while y'all playing.
And then lure Coach K out next year.
That'll never happen.
I know.
Bruh. Nah, don't do that.
LeBron couldn't even get him to come out of college.
All right, but what do y'all think happens with this Lakers pick now? Do you think they keep the pick and
I think he
draft whoever's
traded.
there, or
Well,
they trade it?
They're gonna try to trade. They're gonna try to use it
I
as
think
trade
trade
bait for sure.
For me,
Yeah.
it makes no sense to bring in another young piece
Young player.
that you just gonna have to. So how do you fit with LeBron?
Yeah, LeBron doesn't like to play with young
I don't
players.
know. Yeah, I would just
They
trade
win
him.
now.
I mean, number four overall pick in any other draft doesn't look too bad to move. But what type of player can you get with it in this draft?
Cam
Kind of
Reddish,
depends. It
DeAndre Hunter.
It depends who's on the floor. I mean, that's another part. If you feel like, all right, you do need a shooter, you can do that, but you really gonna waste the number 4 overall pick on just somebody who you just want shooting.
I mean, it's hard to get a read on it because I still don't know what the Lakers want to do with their roster. Like,
Could it
what's
be
your
better?
long term, or not? You're not even your long term.
What's your
short
3-year
term.
deal? Yeah, what's your
what's your
3-year plan?
plan? Like,
Could it be better to draft somebody you know somebody needs or wants and then trade?
you could if they do some intel and say, hey, Atlanta Hawks, I know you wanted, Cam Reddish, but he's not going to be there at 8. So I'll draft him at 4.
But then
and you
get
give
who?
me this, and this.
Kent
No,
Bazemore? Like, what do you?
Well, no,
get
I'm
from
just
that?
saying.
That's what I'm
I
saying.
was using
that was
exam-
hypothetical.
I just used an example because I couldn't think of any other teams that
Right.
were in the 7.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah,
like,
but-
what do you? That's a tough position. And somebody made a good point. They said they honestly feel like Magic just saw it just wasn't a great situation. That might be why he left. When you got the number 1 pick or when you got the number 22 pick, with 22 there's no expectation, so you can pretty much just take whoever's on the board.
Yeah.
It's 22 overall pick. It's kind of like a waste. Whatever. We got the number 1 overall pick, number 2
Or you
overall
might
pick.
hit.
It's decided on. Like like with Lonzo Ball, it was kind of like a no-brainer to a degree. You look back on it, but at that time, who wouldn't have taken him number 2? With number 4, number 5, number 6, number 7, I don't know. You really got to do your job. You really got to scout. You really have to decipher and pay attention and talent scout.
Nah, but with the Lakers, we just show up.
That's their problem.
That's their new problem.
No, that's
That
been
hasn't
their
all-
problem.
Well, they used to actually put in hard work. Magic needed to realize, just like how he was when he was a player. You show up, you're Magic Johnson, but you don't just walk up and down the court and just throw the ball wherever. Like, Magic put in work. Kareem put in work.
But that's what I'm saying.
Well, yeah, I'm saying
You
now
put
in his
those work
position,
with those players.
now in this position, he thought he could just still live off of his name, but didn't realize, just like as a player, I need to put in this work to be a championship, to be
You
a
don't- you don't think
championship
he-
But
president.
that's it's
You don't think
easier.
he put in the work?
Not of what's needed in that position.
But that's what I'm
because he
saying.
was expected to practically run that franchise, and he didn't.
It's a little easier to put in that work when you see you got Kareem, who's been the best basketball player on the planet since he was in high school. And then the following year, you get a James Worthy who just won a national championship. Like, when you look at that talent that like you don't have to develop anything. You don't really have to, you know,
Well, then
interpret
does
and
that say
create.
more
Now you
about-
got to do that.
Does that say more about Kareem versus LeBron? Because we had the same kind of setup. Well, I mean, not the same setup, but we had like younger guys playing with the best player, arguably the best player in the world, and they struggled. I don't think
No,
we
they didn't.
not struggled. They're developing. They're
won
developing.
Magic's first year.
Anyways, no, I'm
No,
not.
he's
I'm
talking
not,
about these
I'm saying about
Lakers
this
now.
year. No, I'm not talking
Oh,
about
okay,
Magic's
my
team.
fault. I thought you
But I'm
meant-
saying what I'm getting at is how we
Turn the
even
TV off.
still figured out like what the Lakers' real issue is, like where it actually stems from.
This year, their biggest issue were injuries. Fact. Like the biggest issue were injuries. Second biggest issue was trade rumors. Third biggest issue was shooters.
Okay.
And I feel like in that order.
So if I'm the Lakers right now, who do I
agree.
need to add to my team? Do I need a big man? We don't even
It
need to talk
depends
about
on
like
what you
specifics.
want. Like if you're trying to compete for a championship this year,
I mean, I'm gonna disagree with you on one point because I think what should have gone in front of all that was team structure or team building, because they went into the offseason without a plan. They went in with a plan was to lure, Paul George or get Kawhi. Both of those failed, and then they just kind of went with whatever. Like
Let's see who else we can just pick up and put around.
they just didn't build a good team. But
with
they
the
could have
team-
won with
that's
that
what I'm
team,
saying,
but
with the
injuries
team
and things
they
like that.
built.
But that led to
you're still number 4 in the West prior to
how many games in?
LeBron going out.
How many games in?
It happens.
Yeah, just like Portland wasn't in the top 3. There were a lot of teams that were below the Lakers, but they caught their stride when it was time. So
Yeah,
I mean,
but you also
I don't
caught
really
a stride. But you also caught a stride when they're struggling. Like
who caught their stride when they were struggling?
a lot of those other teams, like you start coming in when it's not like Memphis, who was high at an early part and it's just kind of like, all right, we don't know what's going on with y'all now. With the Lakers, we know y'all are doing okay. The only person I believe was even injured really early might have been Rondo.
Rondo,
Yeah. But then when LeBron went out for those 18 games, it just kind of got bad from
But
there.
the thing is, though, how many games is LeBron worth? Not in terms of your
Now?
whole team, but I mean,
Now?
just putting LeBron on your roster. How many wins do you think you typically increase?
40.
I was gonna say
Oh,
45.
increase?
Yeah,
I was
Oh,
gonna-
wait,
no, I
how
was
many
gonna
you
say-
increase?
I mean, depending on where
Well,
you're
it depends on what
you're
team
at.
you're
Well, that's
So,
why I'm not just saying his 18 games because their best 5 players all got hurt.
Yeah, well, no, that's why I'm just saying before his injury, LeBron shows up, everyone starts playing a little different. You start playing better and seeing like, hey, we may actually be a team, but then you start to get challenged later in the season, even without injuries. I feel like they still wouldn't have been on track to be 4th in the West. I feel like
Even
they
if
still
not-
would have slid down to 6 or 7.
But would they have made the playoffs?
They would have made the playoffs.
So
with
that's
them.
why
Yeah.
I call injuries their biggest
Yeah,
issue.
but it wouldn't have been a successful season either way because they would have been out in the first round.
What do you think?
I don't
You
know.
think so?
I think they would have been out in the first. And if they slid down
I
to
feel
6
like
or
they-
7, they
Who
would
are
have
they
been
playing
out
at
in the
6?
first round.
They could have
They would have
played
been playing Portland. They
You
would
don't
have
think
lost.
they
I feel like
They
they
would've lost.
I feel like
Would've
they could have beat. I feel like they could have beat.
They would have lost to
Would've
Portland.
lost.
They would have lost to Denver.
I don't know if that's.
LeBron
I
would've
don't.
had to
I don't know if
score a lot.
Portland is a definite loss.
Exactly.
And it's not a definite loss. I'm
That's
not
my
saying like
point.
they're gonna come in and sweep them. But
Yeah, so Warriors
Portland would beat them in
is a
7-game
definite
series.
loss.
Warriors.
Houston is a
Houston,
definite
I think
loss.
is definite.
Houston.
Anybody else
Anybody
they
else?
could have beaten.
Denver, I think Denver would have beat them. Denver would have picked them apart.
I think that I don't think that's closed casket. I
think-
think that's possible. That's a possible win.
Yeah, I just don't see.
Anybody else is a toss up for me other than Houston or Golden State.
One more quick thing though.
Likewise.
Yeah,
Frank Vogel used to
Oh,
be the
Vogel.
head coach of the Indiana Pacers
And the Orlando
and
Magic.
Orlando
Right.
Magic.
But I'm talking more specifically the Indiana Pacers because that's when they went on that run to challenge the Miami Heat.
LeBron.
Do you think he's going to use? Well, obviously he's going to use the same tactics in LA. What do you think his main focus is going to be? Defense.
It was a
making the-
different league.
The lineup isn't even close to being similar to what it was in
In Indiana.
in Indiana.
Mhm.
So I don't think he can necessarily approach this team the same way he did then. And just like Carl just mentioned, it's not the same league. 3-point shooting wasn't what it was then that it is now. And so I think he's going to have to figure out how to get. It really depends on what players they pick up. I think that will determine like the way their offense is run. Honestly,
I mean, I think Vogel's biggest concern is going to be keeping his job because honestly, just because it's not set up for him to be successful. How do you hire a veteran coach like a Frank Vogel and say, hey, you got to have Jason Kidd on your staff, knowing that Jason Kidd was very well respected. He was interviewed before you, considered before you. And from what I'm hearing, it sounds like it's just been tough to kind of sell that it would have been tough to sell Jason Kidd's hire to the media or to sell it to, the sports world in general. So Vogel was a safer pick. But I know a lot of people are saying give it like a year and a half, 2 years, Jason Kidd will be the coach. It's hard to look over your shoulder like that all the time.
It's going to be interesting to see Jason Kidd interacting with Lonzo.
Yeah, I want to see him interacting with LeBron too.
Yeah, I mean, But if I'm Frank Vogel, am I looking for defensive talent or looking for offensive talent?
I mean,
first,
defense still matters. I mean, I understand everything about the 3-point shooting and everything.
I feel like the Lakers haven't had a solid big man in like a while.
Big men aren't important enough for them to really focus on that.
They're not.
I think
it's sad to say,
just having a rim protector,
not
necessarily
like
a big man, but just someone to protect the rim, I think is more valuable than a true big man. You know what I mean?
JaVale McGee.
I like JaVale. I've always liked
brought
JaVale.
in Tyson Chandler for that.
Yeah.
Do they get DeMarcus Cousins? Is that even an option?
I don't want DeMarcus Cousins. Why should we go after DeMarcus Cousins? He can barely stay on the floor.
Could say that about a lot of people. Anthony Davis can barely stay on the floor. Y'all was ready to trade y'all whole roster.
I wasn't. Hey, Anthony Davis.
I'm just answering the question.
I feel like before Cousins' first injury, it's not like he was just a liability to be injured either.
No, I'm just saying. Like now, it just seems like he can't.
Yeah, 2 injuries and.
But I mean the Achilles, Achilles just goes. Like that can happen to anyone. That could have happened to KD right now.
Yeah.
That's what we all thought it was.
That's what it looked like. Yeah. So I mean, it's hard to know. Boogie's 29. I mean, do you give him like I don't know if he wants. I think due to his injuries, he's gonna want a long-term deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's gonna want a long-term deal. He's not gonna want to do another 1 year, 2 year deal. So
would he do a 1 year with the Warriors again? You think? If anybody?
No. No. I need more money.
Facts.
I did that already.
Would he do $4 million?
Yeah, 4 or 5 million, something like that.
I need
the
my
veteran
money now.
minimum.
The veteran
Bugging. He's like, I need that ring.
No, he can go
But
back
like
and do
say
whatever he wants.
like a 1 year, maybe 10 mil.
I don't think they can afford that. They don't have his bird rights to do that.
Who they paying?
Everybody. What you mean?
Damn.
Iggy's still getting like 17 a million, like 17 a year.
Yeah. All right. Well,
Wait, is Iggy? Wait, one of those, either Sean, Iggy, one of those two are free agent. Which one?
Even without Sean, you still over the cap.
No,
They
for
always
sure. But which
pay
one of
the
them is a
payment
free
out,
agent?
bro.
tax. I don't know. That's a
I
good
don't think it's
question,
Iggy.
actually.
I think
it's
Iggy got one
Sean.
more after this. I think.
All right. Well, we're gonna wrap up this topic because Brandon got to go.
All right, big bro.
All right. So next topic we got up. We want to talk about female head coaches in the NBA. I know, Carl, you saw Adam Silver's statement. You want to give us a little bit of insight into what he addressed?
Well, basically what happened was about 2 weeks ago, I was watching on YouTube the Big Three draft, and I saw that the Big Three champions, Power, they won with a female head coach. And starting this season, they had a much larger draft pool. So the Big Three decided to add 4 new teams. One of them is being coached by Lisa Leslie, which made me reminisce on the fact that Becky Hammon with the San Antonio Spurs is already involved with the NBA. The Sacramento Kings, not too long ago, or a couple of years ago, they actually hired a female coach and assistant. Becky Hammon actually won the Summer League as the head coach of that team. And it just really made me go on Facebook and ask, or not even ask, I stated, it's about time the NBA had a female head coach. It's just a lot of bad men coaches, and they just get recycled all the time. And it's just like, why not?
Yes.
And basically what happened was Adam Silver saw my post. So he created an NBA he created an NBA program for new refs, new coaches, and at the end of his opening statement, he did state I don't see why we can't have female head coaches in the NBA. And when I was watching the Big Three draft, I'm sorry, you actually know her name, Sydney. What was her name?
Nancy Lieberman?
Yes, I'm sorry. Nancy Lieberman was speaking to Corey Maggette because not this past season, but the 1 year prior, Corey Maggette had, I believe, ruptured his Achilles, came back, won MVP, along with winning the championship with power. And she was speaking to him in front of the camera at the table, and she was just expressing how no professional athlete had ever had that injury and then come back to win MVP, let alone, be the best player on the championship team. And I saw the way she was able to touch him. Like, I've seen, multiple coaches give speeches about their players to their players, but he cried. Like, it was just something about this woman. And I just started to think, why can't we see this in the NBA? You get all these men and this tension and this testosterone. And yes, it does lead to champions because every year somebody has to win. Why can't a female get that opportunity? And I'm really happy to see Adam Silver provide that, now, because I feel like it's about time. Plus, one of my favorite sports movies of all time is Eddie. I love that movie with Whoopi Goldberg.
Yeah.
And, Sunset Park is one of my favorite sports movies of all time. Another female coach, Rhea Pearl. So I honestly don't see why we can't at least test it out when it's already been tested to a degree.
Yeah. No, I mean, I definitely agree with all that.
I think it's long overdue. Essentially, as long as there's been female coaches in the NCAA, there's no reason why there can't or shouldn't have been at least assistant coaches who are women in the NBA. I think we got our first female assistant coach back in 2014 on Pop staff.
Yeah. WNBA All
And
Star.
so
She's gonna be a Hall of Famer.
Boy.
there you go. So I feel like it's long overdue. As far as names, I'm not too familiar with names unless they're currently coaching at NCAA level for any women. But I don't know who would be in consideration for or who would be up to leave. But it's long overdue. It's long overdue. And as Carl said, seeing how female coaches have had success in the Big Three league, coaching former NBA players and them working and, adapting to her system just fine. I don't think the sex or what's between your legs has anything to do with what your basketball mind is. So yeah, right. I'm ready for that change.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people that are kind of on the con side of it, it's just a shallow, method of thinking, where it's like, oh, well, how is a man going to listen to a woman? She ain't never played against, a 7 foot, Joel Embiid or anything like that.
The same way he listened to his mama.
Right. But you got coaches like Bill Belichick, for example, in the NFL. Mm-hmm. It's not like he was, a professional football player or anything like that, but yet he's one of the greatest coaches of all time. You don't have to be being a student of the game. Yeah, there are certain experiences that you can get from being on the court, but that doesn't necessarily mean, you need to be a former NBA player to be an NBA coach or anything like that.
Exactly.
All right. So obviously the playoffs have been just super exciting since we last recorded. Let's just kind of talk about, some of the series, some of the teams that are out. Obviously, Golden State advances to the Western Conference Finals after beating Houston in 6 games. What do you guys think about that series and kind of how that unfolds? Like, what's next for Houston?
After Game 5, I was a little disappointed in Houston for losing that game with Kevin Durant going out. As soon as they lost, in my mind, the first thing I thought was Golden State no longer has to win this series. If they lose to the Rockets, they have a valid excuse. This team, Kevin Durant is very, very important to us. So if we lose to a healthy Rockets, which has been a lot of people, not even just Rockets or Rockets fans, a lot of people have said Chris Paul plays Game 6, Game 7 last year. Golden State doesn't go to the finals. Houston most likely beats Cleveland. So with no Kevin Durant, I felt like Houston, they had their best opportunity since the James Harden, Chris Paul era to get past the Golden State Warriors. It's the best opportunity Chris Paul's had since, even back Lob City. So I was looking forward to Houston stepping up to the challenge, getting past them. The fact that they lost Game 6 at home was very, very disappointing, especially after realizing that they have no excuse at all. Last year, you looked at that series and you told yourself, Chris Paul wasn't here. That's the only reason y'all beat us. Now you look at that series and you say, their best player wasn't there. And they still beat y'all.
Right.
You had Chris Paul. You had James Harden. Okay, you didn't have Trevor Ariza, but that's your fault. You didn't re-sign him, but you brought in Austin Rivers. You brought in, Kenneth Faried. Eric Gordon didn't play well, but he's on the floor, so that's y'all problem.
And those wins were actually more convincing with KD off the floor than they were with him on the floor.
Exactly. Like, this is your fault. You have nothing to say. You literally can't say anything. Even when you talk about, the refs. I mean, what late game call really, won that game for the Warriors? Houston just lost.
Yeah.
And that sucks. I mean, Chris Paul gets another year on his body. James Harden, he made a statement in the post-game conference. I know what we need to do this summer. I'm curious.
I ain't gonna tell it.
Right. I'm curious to know what that is. I'm curious to know what he's talking about, who he's potentially talking about. I want to know what they're going to do because they had the best opportunity in front of them. And I just want to know what they're going to do from here. Because honestly, I don't see them having a better opportunity than that. Even if you say, okay, well, Kevin Durant may not return. They beat him without Kevin Durant.
Yeah.
So I don't even know if they can beat the Warriors. And we don't know what the Warriors are going to do.
Right.
I really don't know what they're going to look like next year either. So I feel sorry for Houston because I like Chris Paul, but then I don't because you lost that game.
Yeah. So, Connie, what are your thoughts?
I feel like, Houston definitely lost that series. They should have come out on top, and I was shocked that they let the Warriors hang around as long as, especially with Steph having in Game 6, the first shoot, he had scoreless first half.
Yeah.
Right.
And the fact that they were only down, was it tied at halftime or were they down 2?
It was tied 77-77, if I'm not mistaken.
So tied at halftime, going and Steph is scoreless. It had me like, all right, this isn't good for Houston if Steph starts to heat up. Now, if he goes cold the entire night, maybe fourth quarter they can pull away, but as long as that game stayed close, I was just like, Houston is not playing to the best of their abilities, or they're just not. They're taking a game off because they feel like, all right, Durant's not here, or whatever it was that led to them not playing as good as they should have in Game 6. It seemed like they just weren't all there.
57.
But I don't feel like they should.
57.
That was stupid.
I was gonna say they scored 77 in the first half without.
Yeah, 7.
I thought I saw two
I thought it
sevens.
was
It was
without
57 to
Steph?
57 at halftime.
I feel like Houston, I don't know who in the West can really compete with their current team right now. I feel like Denver is on its way up 100%. Whoever the Lakers manage to pick up this offseason, if they do pick up anybody, I'm sure will give them a chance to shoot back into that top 4 that they were at before LeBron was injured. But I don't know who else can really compete with the squad that they had other than age.
Mm-hmm.
Outside of age really being a factor, I feel like, all right, if y'all know what y'all need to do come next season, they should be a top 2 seed in the West next year. With the squad that they had right now, pick up maybe one more defensive player. I feel like a Jimmy Butler ad would be wonderful. I don't know if they have the cap space for him, but I feel like he'd be a great addition to.
Not outright.
Say it again.
I said not with Capella's contract. That's like $20 million a year. Then Chris Paul's like $40 million a year, and then obviously James Harden's contract. So they don't.
Harden.
That's part of the reason that they didn't keep Trevor Ariza was due to cap purposes. He was kind of a cap casualty as well as Mbah a Moute.
Yeah. Which really doesn't make any sense because in Mbah a Moute, you shouldn't give him more than $2 million.
I think Capella's shown that he's not worth the money. You shouldn't be paying any sort of rim protector $20 million annually, in my opinion. Imagine if they would have had, because we talked about JaVale McGee earlier. If the Rockets had JaVale McGee and paid him $3 million and they had that $17 million in cap space to go fill out the rest of their roster, do you think they beat Golden State?
Depends on who they have.
Well, yeah, I mean, depending on who they get.
But
But let's
yeah,
just
no,
say,
no, I hear what
let's
you're
just say
saying.
they keep Trevor Ariza. With that, they pick up, I don't know, more shooters, better shooters, if whoever they want, or another defender. I think they'd be in a better position to beat Golden State or
I
beat
don't
anyone.
know. I mean, it's hard to say only because a lot of it really just, I mean, the whole offense is based around James Harden. I feel like that's something that they need to reanalyze. They need to find another way to get a little more ball movement. Definitely with Capella, I definitely don't agree with paying a man $20+ million that you really can't play in the playoffs. Yes, he got his minutes, but you're pulling him off the floor. You got PJ Tucker running at the 5 because he's your rim protector, but at the same time, he's a defensive liability because of pick and roll.
Right.
It's very hard, to value that man's worth when the most important, time of the year is playoffs. Yes, they're going to be in the playoffs. Yes, they're going to have a high seed going into the playoffs, but what are you going to do in the playoffs?
Right.
That's their biggest
Once you're
problem.
there.
It's nothing for them to finish second,
Right.
third, fourth. Heck, if I'm not mistaken, a couple years ago they finished first.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But they had home court advantage the year that they shot
Last
those-
season.
They missed. Yeah, the one they missed 27 consecutive threes. They
Yeah,
had
so-
home court advantage.
Yeah, and you still lost. So, getting to the playoffs, being in good position, you should expect that.
Yeah.
Even if you just have James Harden and good role players, you're good enough to get, to be top 4. But when it comes down to beating a team like the Warriors, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I hate when people say, not that I'm, defending Mike D'Antoni, but people say it's D'Antoni's system. That's
not
Dan-
D'Antoni's
That's not
system.
D'Antoni's system.
That ain't the way
Right.
Steve Nash
They
played.
were pick and roll, lob to Amari, dish out to Raja Bell.
Right. Sean Marion was averaging 20.
And yeah. So
Sean
that,
Marion was
and that
balling.
was and that was literally 7 seconds or less. But this is shoot with 7 seconds left on the shot clock or
Right.
less.
Right.
This is not D'Antoni's system at all. I think had they played D'Antoni's system, they'd probably have a better chance of winning games because there is much more ball movement. You're actually getting people in positions to be successful as opposed to, okay, James, you do what you do, come with a step back 3. And also with the Rockets, this just goes to show you, I get the analytics are making the trend in the league, but points are points. You know what I mean? Like look at what CJ did against Denver. He hit like 4 mid-range shots that were daggers.
Exactly.
I understand that's like the lowest percentage shot and all this stuff due to the
If
analytics.
you can
but
make it, shoot it.
exactly. LaMarcus Aldridge has made a career off of mid-range. Jordan made a career off of mid-range.
His
DeRozan-
2 most famous
DeMar
shots are
DeRozan.
mid-range free throw jumpers.
Exactly. So I mean, I understand 3-pointers are worth more points, but a step back 3 from James Harden as opposed to, especially with how nifty James Harden is, if he can make these same moves and shoot a 15-footer wide open, I'd rather take that than his step back 3.
Especially contested.
Yeah,
And
especially
then you
contested.
might not be taking a natural shot because you're trying to adjust and get a foul call that you may or may not get.
Right.
I don't trust it.
This isn't good basketball. This isn't how basketball is supposed to be played. This is like the way that they play is similar to like someone who doesn't know how to play 2K and they just take the one best player and just ISO and go do whatever with him. That's what their system is.
They play like that one really, really good guy in a pickup game in a gym.
Yeah.
He just stands at the top of the key and everybody just stands there. And I know this because I've literally done this. You play with somebody that's popular in that gym, he's 6'3", 6'4". He didn't make it past high school, but he
Right.
still can ball. He gets the ball, he dribbles at the top, he does his thing, and he just shoots. And you just stand there like, all right.
And I feel like the only reason Harden doesn't get the criticism that Kobe got is because most of the shots are going in or he's getting to the free throw line. Just higher shooting percentage than
Yeah.
Kobe. But had he been
You don't think he getting criticism?
not
as much
at the
as
level
Kobe.
as Kobe, in my opinion.
And Kobe was a champion before a lot of that bad criticism came.
That was when he was with some god awful teams that he started to get that criticism, which was
Kobe
wild.
got it. Kobe got it way worse than James Harden.
Yeah, I mean James is getting criticism to me for not showing up in the biggest moments,
Yeah.
but it's not necessarily just how you play all the time is a problem. Although he does get some criticism there because people don't like the way he
Yeah,
plays.
because I feel like
trying
there
to
is
get
quite a bit of criticism. Yeah, based around like his style of play, the fact that teams can't win with the top. That was a huge question when he was on his 30-point a game scoring streak, whether or not his style of play was really going to be able to lead a team to a championship. And I still feel like he gets that criticism. Maybe not the hatred, but the criticism is there.
No, I think the criticism is there, like you said, but
I don't see it as much.
yeah, maybe just not
Especially,
as,
like, I definitely saw more praise during that 30-point streak because they were winning. And there was no Chris Paul and there was no Clint Capella. And they started off the season so awful. Now you go on this run and you guys are actually winning. I saw a bit more praise, but I mean, you definitely look at it and there is some, well, can he do that in the playoffs? But there was far more admiration for what he was doing at the moment because the playoffs hadn't started.
yeah.
And he was actually getting them back to a position to be in the playoffs, which they weren't at the beginning of this year.
At the time.
Yeah, at
hear
that
that.
time.
Yeah, so do you guys think the Rockets should, and we'll move on after this, do you guys think the Rockets should make some wholesale changes or just some minor tweaks?
This is my thing. Wholesale changes, that's James Harden. Do you trade James Harden? I don't think they do. But I feel like that's it. Like that is, what are you going to do? Trade Chris Paul? Okay, you still going to have James Harden. It doesn't fix the way he plays.
Right.
Trade Clint Capella? Okay. You still got James Harden to deal with.
Yeah, and I mean, I think I agree with you because there's only so few wholesale changes they can make. The only thing that I think will classify as a wholesale change outside of moving Harden or moving CP3 is Mike D'Antoni.
Yeah.
That's really that's probably the only true wholesale change that they can make.
And what coach do you sell Chris Paul and James Harden on?
Mark Jackson.
I don't know if Mark Jackson is more important than James Harden. And if you bring him in and there's that clash of that's not how we're playing, we gonna go back to the way I had the Warriors, I think he's gonna have a problem with that.
It seems like he's just not as physically fit either to where he can be in any sort of heavy ball movement system like that coming around screens. That's not his style anymore. He used to do it in OKC.
Yeah.
But
he's a
Houston,
completely different player.
yeah, completely. He's done not a 180, but he's just a completely different player.
Yeah. I think we should just accept the Rockets for who they are at this point, to be honest. I just don't see them being a championship team. I see them being one of those, you had the potential. Like, I think they're just basically the Clippers of these last few years. They're the Clippers of these last few years. Like, you're good enough. We see it, but it doesn't happen.
And they're lucky because they're one of the only teams that really gets two legitimate chances. They got two, and to be up 3-2, I understand you had no Chris Paul, but you were up 3-2.
Right. So you
James
had
Harden
two
to get
chances
you
to win that
the
game.
MVP to get you one game, and they couldn't do it out of two games. This opportunity, best player, arguably best player in the world off the court for 2 and 1 quarter games. They should have won Game 5. No excuse. They should have won Game 5 because
Definitely.
I understand Golden State says, okay, we can get back to playing how we play, but at the same time, no Kevin Durant. I mean, James Harden should have been salivating and saying, I'm just going to take 20 shots for the rest of the game, to go get us this game. And Game 6, we're going to close it out. Because by losing Game 5, to me, they lost the series. Even if they would have won Game 6, I didn't think they were going to win Game 7.
The one consistent thing I feel we've seen as far as a shortcoming is that D'Antoni can't really produce either. If there's any constant, I feel like D'Antoni teams never show up in the playoffs. So I feel like if there's a move that needs to happen, it might be that D'Antoni should go. Because I don't feel like the pieces that they have are that bad to where they won't be able to compete for a championship next season.
Right. I mean, I agree with that to an extent as well because, the addition of Austin Rivers was huge. And that showed, in the playoffs. So I think that was a very good pickup for them. You find a couple other players that, kind of fit into that mold. Like, I was surprised they didn't pick up Nick Young. I really thought they were going to pick up Nick Young this year, you know, just to get another just knockdown shooter in there. But for some reason they didn't, you know. I think it's because they went the Melo route, and that didn't work out. And that's a whole nother issue too, because it seems like Melo was on this team like 2 seasons ago, but for them to simply scrap
just last year.
Yeah, but
that was this season.
That was this
wasn't
season.
It?
Yeah, that was this season. So to scratch that and then say, you know what, forget that, we're gonna go this route now. Kudos to them for that, you know, to making it as far as they did. But they still, even without Melo, and even changing, you know, their system slightly, they still should have. They should have advanced.
Yeah.
And I think people need to recant a lot of their Carmelo Anthony criticism and blame. No Carmelo in OKC. Still losing the first round like you did last year.
Yeah.
No Carmelo with the Houston Rockets. You still lose to Golden State like you did last year. So what did I do wrong?
Time out. Hey, time out right quick. What if Melo ends up in Golden State next year?
I mean, I don't really think it puts them over the edge. Like, I don't think it does
To
anything
me,
great for them.
That means they're not going to the finals.
Why would you disrespect that?
Because the
man
ball's
like
going to stop in the corner. I don't want it to stop in the
that?
corner.
He's only going to play 13 minutes. Like, how bad is it?
30?
Yeah.
But Golden State's bench has been what's like propelled them. Not as much these past 2 seasons, but that's what's made them special. That's what's made them practically unstoppable.
13 minutes from one player who might average 3 to 4 shots a game. It's not going to be that bad.
Sean Livingston can't shoot threes, and he would come in for 13 minutes, and he'd make an impact. Iggy for 18, 19, 20 minutes. Kevon Looney, Jordan Bell blocking shots.
Jordan Bell don't play that much.
Well, last year he did.
I'm talking about next year and this year.
And honestly, he should have been playing.
Maybe. That's the reason why you did. Jerebko got your minutes for a reason.
He
Bogut got
ain't
your
earned
minutes
them.
for a reason. But
Jerebko
I don't think Melo is gonna have a neck. I think Melo, if anything, he gonna do what Nick Young did. You play a little defense, you stand in a corner, you get your shots when you get the ball.
I feel bad.
Exactly.
I don't think it's gonna have a terrible, like a negative
I
effect.
feel bad for Melo now though, because especially once you're out of the league, you know, or you don't finish the year, then executives are like, oh well, am I even gonna get what Melo am I even gonna get? You know, and then they all universally don't take
Do
a
we
chance
need you?
on you, and then before you know it, you're 2 years out the league. 3 years later, we get an official retirement announcement, and you're like, well, you retired 5 years ago.
Basically,
So I am kind of afraid that's going to be what happens with him.
only way he gets a job
Likewise.
is if LeBron gets him one.
Yeah, he was supposed to get him a job in LA.
That trade didn't go through to create the roster space.
Yeah. Mike Muscala.
Man.
All right, well, yep.
Well,
All right, so let's jump over to the East. Let's talk about Milwaukee and Boston. Milwaukee powered through that series 4-1. Is that what y'all expected, or did you think it was going to go 7?
I expected a more competitive series. Last year, it was 7. Prior to game 2 of that series, Boston had been undefeated. You know, you sweep Indiana, you win game 1 by 22 points in Milwaukee. So it looked like it was going to be either a competitive series, or it looked like Boston was pretty much going to do what they did last year, but maybe like you're going to beat them again, but maybe
Chris
a little
Paul,
easier.
I mean, not Chris Paul. Paul Pierce had it figured out game 1.
Oh
Yeah.
my God.
He was a genius for one game.
I was highly disappointed in the way the Celtics finished out those last 4 games. But I
think we all are.
I think a lot of people are looking past the fact that Milwaukee has a different coach this year.
Yeah, Mike Budenholzer, he's a good coach. He's
And
just
a
never
lot of people are
considered
just-
in that top 5, top 10.
Everybody keep looking at Giannis.
Yeah. And of course, Giannis has progressed, but
You get a different coach and things happen.
right. And I think they have probably the greatest batch of role players in the league. When you think about the addition of Mirotic, huge. George Hill is playing more like the George Hill in Indiana. Chris Middleton, all-star.
Brooke
Brooke Lopez
played
doing
well.
his thing. You know, Lakers could have paid him $3 million to stay.
Yeah.
Eric Bledsoe
Stepped up in the playoffs.
Yeah, Eric Bledsoe has done his thing. Malcolm Brogdon, we didn't even really talk about because he wasn't in this series much.
Coming back.
Huge. And I thought that they were going to struggle because Brogdon wasn't going to play most of this series.
Right.
So, I mean, Milwaukee has a heck of a supporting cast that I think the casual fan just may not really respect. But they got players.
I mean,
Ilyasova too. I forgot about Ilyasova.
I mean, coming into the playoffs, I definitely said that I didn't really trust Milwaukee because of their role players. That's why I had Toronto coming out of the East, because I looked at the other players, the Ibakas, the Gasols, the Lowrys, the Van Vliets, Anunoby, Siakam. I just trust those guys a little bit more. But no, Milwaukee has definitely shown me, or at least for those last 4 games, they showed me something. And I was impressed.
Yeah, no, they've done their thing. What was your reaction, Sakani?
Shocked. I was actually shocked. I didn't expect for it to be a 5-game series.
Yeah, I definitely expected more.
Yeah, I mean, it just shows that the Bucks are for real this season. Sorry for the background noise. But the Bucks really, okay, we actually do need to take them seriously. Even though they did get the highest seed, it's like, damn, we didn't expect this. So I think it was more so what we saw from the Celtics all season, though. Just this, who is this team? We can't figure them out. And that was what the season that series culminated into. Like, what Celtics team is this? Like, who are they? What's their identity? And we couldn't really figure it out the whole series. Meanwhile, the Bucks showed up the way that they had all season, and Giannis, and yeah, I mean, it was just the identity of each of those teams came out that series. It wasn't what I expected, but also it was something that wasn't a huge shock. Like, I was shocked, but at the same time, it was like, well, this is who the Celtics were, and I didn't know what team was going to show up, so this makes sense, but also y'all are better than this.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, and for me, I'm going to shift the focus towards Boston, because I think we looked at Boston's talent. We looked at their success from the previous season. Granted, they were bringing in Kyrie, they were bringing in Gordon Hayward. You think about a team like the Warriors, where the Warriors just have, a lack of focus, and for some reason come playoff time they can turn that switch on and just take over from there. But the reason that is because they have chemistry. That team has chemistry. Boston had no chemistry. This iteration of the Celtics had no chemistry, so you can't turn a switch on that you don't have. Your team hasn't developed a switch yet. They have their moments like they did in game 1, where it seems like everything's falling, everyone's getting their work in, putting their work in, but that's why it's like flash in a pan and not an actual, I can legitimately hold this momentum for a 7-game series.
Yeah.
Kyrie especially, he reminded me of LeBron in that series against the Celtics before he left Cleveland the first time. It just had that same vibe. Like, he had just mentally checked out already. Yeah, he's playing, he's shooting, but he wasn't all there. And in Boston,
there wasn't the hunger there.
Yeah, that hunger wasn't there. So he wasn't really tripping off of, okay, we lose this series, we get embarrassed, like, okay, whatever. Like, it's not
how we gonna show up next year.
Exactly. He wasn't thinking about how he's gonna show up next year. They keep on showing that that Magic Johnson meme where he's like, I ain't gonna be here. Like,
exactly.
That's really how Kyrie. That's really how it seemed. So, you don't have to worry about a future with them because he ain't thinking about a future with Boston. So I just got that vibe from him, and I don't care what anyone says. Free agency, the thought of free agency was plaguing him all season.
I can tell you who's definitely not thinking about a future with Boston. Terry Rozier.
Oh yeah. I loved his statements on First Take today.
I mean, I think a lot of it is predicated on Kyrie Irving's possible, which is at this point, I think it's a very, very slim chance, but his possible return. But I think he's out of there.
I appreciated his honesty.
Yes.
Because he did identify on multiple occasions a lot of players, maybe not even, he didn't say a lot of players, he said himself, he referenced it. But the fact that he, legitimized it, players are looking at Gordon Hayward like, bro, you getting $30 million, you're playing all these minutes and you don't deserve him.
Right.
Like
You ain't doing nothing.
you're not doing anything. And maybe it's not, hey, I hate Gordon Hayward, he's overrated, but they realize the Gordon Hayward on the court right now is not the Gordon Hayward y'all
From
thought you
Utah.
were getting.
No, it's not the Gordon Hayward that you signed. It's not the Gordon Hayward that started off the first 3 minutes of first game last year.
Right. Yeah, I mean, and Terry Rozier brought up a good point. He said you got players on this roster that have already gotten paid.
Yes.
You got guys looking for the next payday. You got guys that just had some shine and now they're looking for that shine again in the biggest moments on the biggest stage. That's a lot of egos to battle.
Right. I did feel bad for Terry Rozier, but the person who I felt really bad for was Jaylen Brown. I felt like, I mean, with Terry Rozier saying he took the biggest hit, with his talent being held back, I felt like Jaylen Brown was right there with him. Yes, Jaylen Brown is getting the minutes, but it's just a different role. Like, what am I, a primary defender now? Like,
Right.
and
He's
then
a
not
3
even,
and D guy.
I'm saying, and not even really that, because you might look at Marcus or Markieff.
Marcus Morris.
Yeah, you might look at Marcus Morris, who, I remember it was funny. He made that public statement that he and Kawhi Leonard are like the best people to defend LeBron. So it's like, like now you just kind of limited to that role. And I feel like he's definitely more than that.
Yeah.
So both he and Terry Rozier took really big hits. Even with Kyrie leaving, possibly, Gordon Hayward is still there, and I feel like he may need to be traded. And I think he really just needs to keep that.
They still got
young.
squad though.
They do. But
I mean, that's that's I think that's what this year taught us.
yeah.
Squad is, you got to put it together.
Right. And the thing is they still have squad like you said, but I remember at the time, when Danny Ainge was, acquiring all these assets, all these draft picks, all this draft capital, they're like, "Oh, this is a genius idea, da da da." And it got you here. You cap all your cap space so you can bring in big name free agents, and it got you here. And if this is the end result, what's stockpiling assets for what? I mean, you're going to get to the point where you're going to have a logjam in the wing position, logjam at your point guard position.
Right.
Only logjam they don't have is really in their bigs.
Yeah, because Al Horford and
Aaron Baines and Daniel Tice. But, I mean, you are going to get in that situation at some point. So unless their plan really was to stockpile some of these assets and go get an Anthony Davis so that you now have a big three and put role players around them, guys that understand their role. Don't bring in guys that you drafted high saying, I'm going to try to make you a star.
Right.
I want you to do this for our franchise for the next 10 years. And then go bring in a 28-year-old small forward coming off an all-star year saying, well, here, $30 million, I'm going to have you do this now.
Yeah.
Because now I'm looking, if I'm Jason Tatum, if I'm Jaylen Brown, like,
wait a minute.
So
Who am I again?
Exactly. And you drafted them both number 3 overall.
Yes.
So I just don't, it backfires. I mean, I feel like you got to have a legitimate plan. So either take those assets and go flip those assets at once and go get your star, or let those guys kind of materialize. This probably would have been the perfect time to make that move, because Jason Tatum coming off of peak performance, Jaylen Brown coming off of peak performance, their trade value is high. Flip them now, because the system that they had, just the logjam that they had in those positions, it backfired. And it hurt a lot of egos in that locker room.
Because you could not trade for Anthony Davis with Kyrie Irving's contract.
Yeah, that's true.
Was there possibly anybody else in the league that they should have looked at? Like, if they had a chance, should they have maybe tried to get Kawhi and you have a Kyrie, a Kawhi? I mean, that luxury tax would have been ridiculous.
Right.
But a Kyrie, a Kawhi, Gordon Hayward, Al Horford, and you just fill that out?
Or could they may have moved at, like, I know there was like the Jimmy Butler rumors early on. Jimmy probably would have been a good fit next to Kyrie, potentially.
Yeah.
So
I think they might have. I mean, every locker room argues, but I could see that going really badly.
Oh yeah, no, it could.
You tell me you go 8 for 22, And then in your post-game conference, you say,
shot 30 times.
No. He went 8 for 22. In his post-game conference, he said, I bet you don't see another 8 for 22 game from me again. Then you go 7 for 22. And then you say, I should have took 30 shots because I'm that great of a shooter. You getting slapped in the locker room by Jimmy Butler.
Yeah.
Who
That's
said
real.
that?
Kyrie Irving went 8 for 22. He said, I bet you don't see another 8 for 22 game from me again. He went 7 for 22 and then said, I should have taken 30 shots because I honestly believe I'm that great of a shooter. And then, if I'm not mistaken, he went 6 for 21 after that. It was something crazy.
I mean, he had one of the worst four games in a series, in a playoff series of all time. One of the worst. It was just god awful.
Yeah, that was inexcusable by a Kyrie. I mean, but honestly, I don't like what he said. Not even possibly. I like Kyrie Irving. Always have, but I've always felt like he was a little overhyped. I never looked at Kyrie Irving like a superstar. Mm-hmm. Even when people say that to this day. Oh, well, yeah, they had a bad season, but Kyrie, he's still a superstar. Based on what?
Right. And I think regardless of what you think about his skills or his production, I think it's universally clear he's not a leader, or he's not a good leader.
Not yet, no.
Yeah. He's not a good leader yet. I mean, he made that perfectly clear. Just all of his passive aggressive statements and just kind of reluctance to address the media properly and things like that, and just some of those statements that you make in the playoffs, you don't tell. If you go 7 for 22, you go to the podium and say, hey, the whole team has to play better, and that starts with me. Take the accountability. Say 7 for 22 isn't gonna cut it. But that was never the case. You don't say I should have shot 30 more shots because I'm so great. Because now, Jason Tatum, who took 10 shots, is like,
prove it.
Let me take 15 shots. I'm giving you 20.
That's the thing. When you take 22 shots and your response is, I should have taken 8 more. Whose 8 shots are you taking?
Right.
Who you taking shots from? Because if you feel like you're taking
two
4
of
from me,
5,
when I only took 6,
yeah,
it's not gonna happen.
Exactly. So it's troubling, and I mean, I feel like Kyrie has to be out. There's no way to rectify this situation with Kyrie coming back, in my opinion.
I don't believe so either.
Y'all want to talk this Portland and Denver series?
That was such a good series.
It was. I mean, part of me was happy to see Denver lose because they knocked out my Spurs, but that was just a heck of a series nonetheless. I was glad to see Dame and CJ, although Dame didn't play that well this series, and
he didn't.
It's gonna get overlooked because they won the series, so it's Dame and CJ. They're a package deal, but CJ has just proven his worth. I mean, he doesn't get the reputation, he doesn't get the accolades that he does, during the regular season. No All-Star appearances, nothing like that. He really gets no love. It's Dame because
trash.
because we always say that Dame's overlooked. So, it's always Dame's underrated, and we want to see him get his due. So it's like until Dame gets his due, CJ can't get his. That's what it feels like.
That's what that's real.
But CJ is that dude. If CJ didn't drop 37, they needed every single one of his points in that game 7. He drove them from beginning to end. So I like Portland's roster. I like them more than I thought, especially after losing Nurkic. I knew they added Kanter, but Kanter stepped up defensively. His rebounding's there. I like Zach Collins off the bench. I wasn't a big fan of him at Gonzaga. I was like, why do they keep on talking about this dude? But in the league, he's been good. He's been really good.
Yeah, Miles Leonard, they have a nice little rotation where you can put somebody in and you don't feel like you're really losing much.
Right.
With Nurkic, Kanter, Collins. And then Collins, he kind of adds something, with his 3-point shot.
Yeah.
And then
he's nasty too. He'll get in there. I know there was a one game against Golden State where I think he drew a charge against Clay, and then they were like jawing back and forth, and he was like "F you" and all this stuff. I know he's gotten into it with Rondo. I think he's gotten into it with several dudes like in the league. He ain't trying to back down from nobody.
I don't know, but Dame, I don't know. I feel like he may have went a little too hard in the first series.
So emotional.
Yeah, just taking that matchup with Russ a little too serious. You know, he gave a lot to make sure that they won. You went in 5, so you have a little bit more of a break.
Yeah.
And, because Denver went 7. So, you could probably say, maybe the start. You could put a little bit of it on Russ, some of it on wear and tear. Like, you just went really, really hard against Russ in that one. And I don't care how inefficient Russell Westbrook is. Guarding Russell Westbrook, going against Russell Westbrook, playing against him for even a game, it has to be tiring because his motor.
Right. You feel like you have to match his energy.
Exactly. Like his motor is so high. I can imagine how tired Damian Lillard was, but not even making excuses. But I like the fact that he was able to look at CJ and say, "No, you got it. You hot right now. What do I look like? Like, no, I'm not going to do that. No, you good. Like, you are who you are for a reason. It's a difference between giving CJ McCollum that shot and giving Mo Harkless that shot.
Yeah,
you made your last 4 shots. I'm sorry. I have to shoot this. But no, CJ, you're number 2 for a reason. It's not 1A, 1B necessarily. Throughout that series it looked like it, but we know who the guy is. But CJ, you are number 2 and you good, so you can take that.
Yeah. Sakani, what did you think about that series?
Let's not act like Mo Harkless wasn't balling that series either, though.
He was.
He had stupid fouls throughout the series, but he was balling.
A lot of stupid fouls. So many stupid fouls.
But it's levels. Yes, but it's levels. Mo Harkless is balling when he averages 14. Right. We don't expect that from him.
Exactly. No, I get you. And he's not. I think is he starting, or he didn't start that game.
He didn't start that.
Or he started.
He didn't start the last
second
game.
half.
Hood and Collins started the second half.
Yeah. But either way, I loved the series. I thought it was great. It was competitive. I feel like even though Dame didn't show up points-wise, he was still making his presence known on the floor, which was
still
important.
Had a lot of assists.
And he allowed... Say it again?
He still had assists and rebounds in that game.
Yeah.
Like
exactly.
Both him and CJ.
He almost had a triple-double.
Yeah.
He almost had a triple-double that last game.
He was, 13, 8, and 10, something like that?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. And so, I mean, he still made his presence known on the floor, which was great. I would love for Portland to be in the finals. That's who I would emotionally. I would want to see there because I love Dame, I love CJ. Portland is just one of those teams where how you have that team like your 3rd, 4th favorite team. It's like I would love to see them do good. Yeah. That's who Portland is for me. So, it was emotionally good to see that happen.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I was actually surprised that they were able to go into Denver and come back because they were down 17 early on, and I was like, so this is over. And the fact that they were able to, keep grinding. CJ obviously just took over the way he did in Game 7, and it was like, all right, well, it seems like at this point it's CJ's playoffs to be able to, take off and show who he is as a player, and Dame has allowed him to do that. Stotts has allowed him to do that. And so they're gelling right now in a good way, even though they just lost this game to Golden State by 22. That series they were gelling, and hopefully they're able to pick up on that again the next couple of days. I know Golden State has some rest, but not that much for they've each played the same amount of games essentially.
All right, so last but not least, one of the series that wrapped up, we had Philly and Toronto, 7-game series. The first buzzer beater in a 7-game series, so Kawhi made history. That was literally the shot heard around the world because at one point when it hit the rim the first time, it was dead silent, and you could literally hear the ball hit the rim 3 more times before it went in.
Yes,
which is insane. obviously, heck of a series. You know, I feel so bad for, you know, Joel Embiid. Obviously, he's a meme now with his crying and everything, but he wanted that game so badly. He wanted that series so badly, you know, going through everything he went through health-wise, you know, to make it through, and you're that close to making it to a conference finals, and, you know, that shot takes it away.
I mean, you know, it's sports.
Yeah.
You got time, you got years. You may feel like this was possibly one of your best opportunities to go that far because of the additions. You bring in a Jimmy Butler, you bring in a Tobias Harris. You feel like, all right, this might be the best team that I've played with. Definitely the best team that he's played with so far, but he's still very young. They still got more years to grow. There's no telling what team they may have next year. Nobody expected Jimmy Butler and Tobias Harris to be there for this season. You know, in regards to the shot, I watched it live. I was definitely, you know, tuned in. You know, I saw the play. I saw him drive to the right. Once he got the ball, I knew exactly what he was doing. I feel like I've seen Kawhi Leonard take that fade away, you know, corner right 3 shot before. Mm-hmm. So when he got it, I knew he was driving right. He got to his spot, faded away. When it first hit, you know, he had been shooting very, very bad for the night. And he even said, you know, a lot of his shots were short.
Yeah.
So when it hit that first part of the rim and I saw it go that high, it's crazy how you said, you know, you could literally hear, because I got just as silent as everybody in that entire arena did.
Yeah.
And as soon as it bounced the second time, in my mind, I said, this shot about to go in. And when it fell in, I jumped up and I ran from one living room to the next, and I started running up the stairs, and I got off of work, so I was tired, and I said, no, I'm going to stay downstairs. And I just kept running around.
Carl got 2 living rooms.
Hey, man, I was so
okay,
tired.
Carl.
Bro, my sister was like, what? I said, he made it. You didn't see that? He made it. She was like, no, I didn't see it. So I rewinded it, and we just started going crazy again. Mm-hmm. That was definitely one of the best game winners I've ever seen live. Yeah. Just the dramatics of it. I mean, yes, you're a good shooter, but you know nobody really looks at Kawhi Leonard like the, you know, oh, you're the Dame, you're the Kyrie, you're the KD. Jordan, KD, the Kobe when it comes to game winners. Nobody looks at you like that. But when he takes the shot over somebody like Joel Embiid, who's that large, and you know the dramatics of it, bouncing, rolling in, Game 7, you know, no time left on the clock. Like that was. Honestly, I'm not saying, it's the best. It was just one of the best that I've seen live, definitely.
Yeah.
You know what I'm going to say? You're right. I don't view Kawhi in that, like, that clutch, like, last shot you taking it. But I will say this. I don't know if I have as much blind faith in another player the way I do Kawhi. Like, I trust, like, when that whole game, he didn't shoot well, but for some reason, every time he went up, I'm like, this is going in. Like, for some reason, I have that type of faith in him where I feel like he's going to get the job done. And it's not like he has tons of playoff experience for me to, like, have that type of feeling in him. I mean, yes, he has the Finals MVP, but I feel like that was more so, like, for his defense. But offensively, I've never, like, been like, yeah, Kawhi is, like, he is a walking bucket. Like, he's averaging a good 35 in his playoffs.
Yeah. Or in that series, yeah.
Sorry, in that series, yeah. And so it's like the boy can score.
Yeah.
And so that final game, it was just like I felt like every shot that he was going to put up had the potential. Obviously, it has the potential to go in, but I was just more so leaning towards like, all right, this is going in. This man has been on fire all game. Even though he wasn't on fire all game, he put up 41 shots.
Yeah.
Or no, what was it?
39.
Was it 41 shots?
Yeah, 41
39
points,
shots
39
and 41
shots. I think
points.
it was 16 for 39.
With Kawhi, I feel like he has that same, you know, kind of conviction that KD has, where you can tell KD's getting to his spots and he's pulling up there. Mm-hmm. With Kawhi, it's a little different because he's a little herky-jerky, a little hesitant. So it's like, dude, what are you trying to do?
Yeah,
but he's getting to his
agile
spots,
at all,
though.
but
He's getting to his spots. And so when every mid-range shot he took, I was thinking the same thing like Sakani. Oh, that's going in. Like, y'all let him get to his spot. It's a wrap.
Right.
So
Exactly.
So even with that shot, it looked like he knew exactly where he wanted to go. But it's like, dude, you're running out of space. Like,
Right.
But that's where he wanted to go.
Where are you going?
That was planned. Like, and I saw that.
Exactly. Like, I think he just wanted to squat over by the bench like he did for some reason. But
And that too, we don't see him emotional.
yeah, that
was the
scream,
coldest
that
part.
yell, that
But yo, that was the other thing. It was just the one yell. That was I expected more though. He yelled once, and then like he wasn't smiling during the post game interview. Nothing. I was like, if this man isn't the living embodiment of Tim Duncan even smiled though.
yeah,
Like,
right. I mean, even as
you,
a bitter Spurs fan, you know, having Kawhi leave, I was still happy in that moment because he did have moments in San Antonio. People forget in that finals game 6 where Ray Allen hit the shot, Kawhi missed a key free throw.
Yes, I remember that.
And I feel like he's really grown from those moments. He may not tell you, but he's grown from his time in San Antonio to where he is today. So I am proud of him for that, you know, and I'm happy to see him succeed still. So I can't be extremely, you know, 100% bitter and be like, oh, nah, he traveled or something like that. Like, no, he did his thing. So I got to give him his props, and I am happy to see him succeed. I don't know what the future holds for him. Does he stay in Toronto? Does he go? I don't know. But I think the future's going to be bright for him anywhere he goes. I think he should stay. I think he's found somewhere that he can now call home.
I think they should upgrade Kyle Lowry for Kemba Walker, but I think he should stay.
Kemba.
That'd be real nice.
Lowry gets sent to the Pelicans, not Pelicans,
Hornets.
Suns, Phoenix Suns.
Well, I mean, I feel like you would have to do a sign and trade.
Yeah,
because you can't really just sign
Yeah.
Kemba. You got to do a sign and trade.
yeah. No, they would have to. They would have to. But
Of course. And then
so
send them over there.
Yeah,
Right.
send Lowry to the Hornets because like it's compensation.
Yeah.
'Cause Lowry might leave
as
anyway.
opposed to losing Kemba for nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So we've gotten to see probably two of the most iconic buzzer beaters in NBA playoff history. So next poll question we got for y'all: who had the better series clinching buzzer beater? Was it Dame Lillard, you know, hitting the shot from 37 feet to eliminate the Thunder in the first round? Or was it Kawhi Leonard's bounce everywhere around the rim before it goes in series clinching buzzer beater? Make sure to follow us on Instagram at FanCulturePod. If you're listening from the Anchor app, leave us voice messages. Make sure to subscribe and favorite the app. We're on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all that good stuff. Just make sure to check us out on your favorite platform. All right, well, till next time, y'all. Peace.
Peace.
So.